What I'm going to be talking about today is platform as a product, and what happens when we treat security as a user of our platform. So who's familiar with the term platform as a product? If you've maybe read team topologies, give me a little wave if you're in a platform team or if you sometimes wear the product hat in your platform team as well. Yes, and so platform as a product is a methodology that was originally sort of suggested by the folks from Pivotal and ThoughtWorks, and then it's gained a lot of popularity through team topologies. But in essence, basically all platform as a product means is that we build platforms to serve the needs of our users. And so we need to go and talk to our users to understand what those needs are. And today I'm going to propose that we don't talk to our security colleagues enough about their needs of our platforms. What we do an awful lot of is we obsess about developers as our users. And to be fair, developers are our primary users of our platform, but they're not the only users. And if you'd come to a conference about platform engineering, about cloud native, you would have heard an awful lot of dialogue about developer experience, developer productivity, developer tools. And that was pretty much all we ever talked about in platform engineering. But there is another type of user. There are many users of our platforms. And actually what we could do with doing is paying them a little bit more attention and actually figuring out how our platforms can meet their needs as well. My sort of journey into the world of security started while I was working at Pivotal and then at VMware. And to be quite honest, from the beginning of my career, all throughout this point, is security was seen as a source of friction. They were the people who said no more often than they said yes. They were the folks who slowed us down when we wanted to go fast. And it wasn't until I took on a role in product at Sneak, a security platform, that I really started to understand the challenges that security teams face day to day. So the reality for security teams is they're massively outnumbered. It can sometimes be thousands of developers for every one person that you have in a dedicated security role in a large organization. They tend to be small teams that are stretched very thin across a very vast technical domain. Security teams suffer from information overload and alert fatigue. There are new vulnerabilities discovered every day, and they have to filter through the noise to figure out what the signal, what the actual risk that is posed to their business is. And the other really challenging thing for security teams is that they often don't have the ability to fix the problems that they see. They have the accountability. They're ultimately accountable for the security of the systems that they govern, but they can't actually go and do the work themselves. They have to work through influence. They have to work through other people. And so when I was at Sneak, all of a sudden the world and the pains of security teams opened up for me because they were my users, and I was interviewing them for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've really missed a trick here. And it completely changed my perception of security teams. And we fast forward to today. Honestly, security teams have never been under so much pressure as they are right now. It's not just Claude Mythos, Codex, and a lot of the other frontier models. They are incredibly good at discovering and exploiting new vulnerabilities. And so what we are experiencing right now is a tsunami of discovery of new and latent vulnerabilities in the software that we take for granted, the open source software that runs the world. It is such a serious problem that a couple of weeks ago, IBM and Red Hat pledged $5 billion to try and help maintainers of open source software to address this problem. It's a $5 billion problem for Red Hat. It's probably a problem for all of us, but I don't think we've all got $5 billion to go and solve it. Mythos found 10,000 vulnerabilities as part of Project Glasswing, and as timely as it could be, me delivering this talk, Mythos is now generally available. Every hacker in the world has now got access to Mythos if they put their credit card into Anthropic and get access to it. This is the reality for security teams today, and we've got a word for it. It's the vulnpocalypse, because 2026 was already going to be the year where we had the most CVEs discovered ever, because it goes up every single year, but this is going to be an exponential year. This is a vulnerability forecast for 2026, and if I go over here, it's like, the line is sort of trending towards about 50,000 vulnerabilities in the middle there. But that doesn't feel realistic, does it? Not if Mythos discovered 10,000 vulnerabilities, latent vulnerabilities in open source software during its first few weeks, becoming available to just a handful of organizations through a very controlled access program called Project Glasswing. So my prediction is we're going to be exponentially more vulnerabilities discovered. And so as a security team, what are we going to do about that? So the way security teams usually work is a process of triage and prioritization. And that is done by humans with thinking brains who are security experts. That is not sustainable anymore. What you're doing today will not work tomorrow. And we have to try and think about systematic ways of solving for this enormous deluge of software vulnerabilities that we're about to discover in our software stack. And I wanted to share a little story with you because my first 0 day, who here has managed a 0 day? Like a 0 day CVE is basically a 0 day is basically a newly discovered vulnerability, like a critical vulnerability, which you have 0 days to patch. It's that bad that you're basically already late when you make a start. So my first 0 day, we had a heads up that it was coming. We knew that OpenSSL was vulnerable, and we were told that it was a new critical vulnerability. And so at the time I was working for Sneak, and we went, right, what is the blast radius of this new OpenSSL critical CVE? Well, it was baked into every single Linux distribution, and so it was inside every single container. So the blast radius was every single service we were building and every single container we were running, and therefore every single one of our customers. That was the blast radius. On the morning that the CVE was published, it was actually downgraded, thank God, to 2 high-level CVEs instead of 1 critical CVE. But this was my first 0 day, and I had never... This was in my first month working at Sneak, and so I was handed this. I was handed this because my job title had container in it. Like, go forth, Hannah, and fix the containers, would you? And so that's when I learned about how broken these processes are, not just for like regular businesses, but even for startups and security companies. Basically, the CVE was disclosed. It was downgraded, thankfully, but it still needed to be patched urgently. And so I was like poised and ready. I was like, I knew every single team I needed to talk to. We figured out a communication plan. We had an incident management like war room for it. And then we waited. We waited and waited and waited and waited because we did not control the asset that needed to be patched. The asset that needed to be patched was the base images that we were procuring from a third party, and they wanted to do their own triage and prioritization and assessment of the CVE before they pushed a patch. And so it was hours and hours and hours of waiting before we could even start work on this. And then when we did start work on it, as I said, every single container we were building needed to be updated, rebuilt, and then redeployed into production. And then we had to go about the business of doing the advisory work with our customers to make sure they could do the same. You cannot do that every day. And the reality that we're in is that you might have a new critical CVE to patch every day. Like when I say what works today isn't going to work tomorrow, we need to be thinking about a way that a 0 day is a non-event. What do we need to build to make sure that a zero-day CVE is a non-event, that that thing just gets patched automatically without requiring human intervention and coordination? And as you might have guessed, I believe platform engineering could be part of the answer to this question. This week, Josh Bressers, who is head of security for a security company called Anchor, published a fantastic blog post. I recommend that you read it, but I pulled out this one sentence from it. It said, "The way that we handle security problems today is the result of expectations that we created in a world that no longer exists." And there's so much about software development today and the impact of AI where we could make that statement, but I think it's actually super relevant, and it's something that every security team needs to take on board. We need to let go of the things that made us successful before, and we need to try something new. And so where can platform engineering help? What if we start treating our security colleagues as users of the platform? Well, we can reduce the noise, and we can automate the response. We can take the human toil out of security response. I was really interested to see the Synesthesia, which is an AI startup based in the UK, are using AI for automatic triage and vulnerability management. This is a fantastic blog post about what they found worked and what they found didn't work. So we can build internal tools that take away some of the manual effort of reasoning about risk when a new CVE is published. We can also build tools into our platforms that help remove the blind spots. This is a screenshot from a tool that I'm building at the moment called Bimp. It's a base image management platform, and to be quite, it's the tool I wish I had during my first 0 day. That's it. That's the whole thing. I wish I had had this tool, because basically what it does is it goes and scans all your repos, and it finds those vulnerable out-of-date assets that haven't been maintained, and then it goes and replaces them with the secure versions. And it is as simple as that. But if you're not scanning your repos and you're not closing that loop with developers, then the security team have very little visibility about where the risk actually sits. Another thing that platforms can do, which is actually super easy for a platform team, is to provide context about each application to the security team. Who owns this application? Where is it running? Does it process any sensitive data? What is the impact if it is compromised? Like, think about the information that a platform has about the applications that run on it. What information do security teams need to reason about the risk? And all of a sudden, you can see a scope to build massively powerful tools that cut through the noise and help you focus on the things that really matter when you're managing your risk posture. So in summary, as platform engineers in the room, firstly, I'm going to ask you to go and sit down and have a coffee with your security colleagues and give them a hug, because they are drowning right now. And then do some proper user research. It's like, how can I help make your job easier today? And how can we build something together to make it even easier tomorrow? How can we make some of the no-brainer responses to new CVEs? If a patch is available, just push that patch into production. How can we automate some of the stuff that we should just be doing anyway? How can we provide more context about the applications to help the security teams reason about risk? And AI is really good at building tools and software, so how can we maybe start to build internal tools that help us to manage our security posture? Build something custom that works for you and your team instead of spending millions on a security vendor. That's all I've got for you. How did I do on time? I'm not sure. This is my LinkedIn. Please come and chat to me. I'm really interested in everything at the intersection of cybersecurity, platform engineering, and AI right now. That's the little spot that I live in. If you're also interested in these things, I'd love to chat and connect with you.